So for our warm-up today, we have a kite, K-I-T-E, kite. And we know that angle K is a 90-degree angle and angle T is a 60-degree angle. I would advise you to not be tempted to draw the other diagonal in. You might see this kite and want to draw the other diagonal, making 4 triangles instead of 2, but I think we're in pretty good shape just using these 2 diagonals, for right now at least, so don't draw that other diagonal in right away. When we look at this, we're trying to find IE first, and we have a triangle right here that is both right and isosceles. It is isosceles, and we know that we have a shortcut when triangles are isosceles. So it's 10, 10, 10 root 2. So IE is 10 root 2. And then it asks for IT. Now, you could draw the other diagonal in, and you could divide that by 2, and you could use a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Or you could think about this a little bit more. How do I know KI is 10? Well, first of all, I know it's 10 because this is a kite, and a kite has 2 pairs of consecutive congruent sides. But second of all, it had tick marks already for us. Okay? Bisector. Okay, real quick, how do I know which diagonal is the angle bisector? So, we talked yesterday about how there was one diagonal of symmetry. A kite has one diagonal of symmetry. And then I told you that like 95% of the time, or maybe even more, it's going to be the longer diagonal. How do you know which diagonal it is? You can tell by where the tick marks are. Do you see where the tick marks are? So this diagonal is the diagonal of symmetry because this is congruent to this. And this one is congruent to this one. But I actually want to undo all of that because I'm not going to use that diagonal right there. Oops. Do you know what these angles are right here, guys? Do you know what those angles are? Yeah, if that triangle has a 60-degree angle and it's isosceles, then those other 2 angles have no other choice. They have to be 60 and 60. So we have on our hands, we have an equilateral triangle. So we already know what IT and ET are. If it's equilateral, all the sides are congruent, so they are all the same length. If you wanted to, you could have drawn the other diagonal in and you could have worked with a 30, 60, 90 triangle, but you would have gotten the same thing either way. Okay. Kites, super fun. Those are my favorite. Let's check our homework. One side of the homework was called trapezoids 2, and the other side was called kites. So go ahead and look at these answers. Here's the kite side. Oh, whole thing. Yes, on the trapezoid side, there were a few problems asking about kites, but you didn't have to solve anything. You would need to do the kite side to solve some kite problems. Okay, number 5 on the trapezoid side. It says that TS, that's a horrible trapezoid, sorry, I'm trying to draw it sideways. TS is 4 and QR is 16. Did we just have our answer wrong? It's asking to find, XY, which is the median. It's the mid-segment. So the mid-segment is the average of the bases. You add up the bases and divide by 2. Okay, number 20 on the part that says kites, true or false. Both pairs of opposite angles are congruent. So in a kite, the way a kite works is that you have one diagonal of symmetry. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. Okay? Angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. But angle 3 is not congruent to angle 4. So that's why both pairs of opposite angles are not congruent. Angle 3 is a different measure than angle 4, whereas angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. All right, let's go to the other side of your page. Everyone struggled with number 6 on the kite side. Even the kids in my class struggled on that one. So number 6 on the kite side. That looks more like a rhombus, but oh well. So we have, we don't want to draw that last one. Oh no. So most of you found X already. Here we go. Most of you all already found X. You set those two equal. 4x plus 13 equals 5x minus 15, and you get X. And then you plug it back in. What is X on number 6? X is 28, so you do 4 times 28 plus 13, and you get 125. So you now know these angles. They are 125. You also know that this is your diagonal of symmetry. That is your mirror. I want you in a kite to think of it as a mirror. When an angle looks in the mirror, he's going to see himself. So when Y looks in the mirror, he's going to see Y. When Y minus 9 looks in the mirror, he's going to see Y minus 9. So all you have to do is look at one of these triangles, either one you want, and now the angles add up to 180. So Y minus 9 plus 125 plus Y equals 180 because they are the angles of a triangle. So you had to use the mirror image of Y and then add them up to equal 180. Okay? Let's move on to some just reviewing some things before we take our quiz. So these are going to be the shapes on the quiz. You're going to have parallelogram. At home last night you memorized these properties, I hope, okay? Opposite sides are parallel. Opposite sides are congruent. Opposite angles are congruent. Consecutive angles are supplementary, and very important, the diagonals bisect each other. The diagonals are not congruent, but they do cut each other in half. That's not the same as congruent, okay? Pork chop. All right, what about a rectangle? He has all the properties of a parallelogram, but he has two bonus properties. You really only have to memorize one of them. Everyone knows that rectangles have 4 right angles. So you didn't really need to memorize this one. But the fact that a rectangle has congruent diagonals is really important. The reason that the diagonals being congruent is so important is that when you draw the diagonals, they're congruent and they bisect each other. So you get isosceles triangles. Now, they're not all 4 congruent isosceles triangles, but the left one is congruent to the right one and the top one is congruent to the bottom one. So that's important in a rectangle to find missing angles, knowing that, oh, this angle matches this one, and this angle matches this one. It works like that. One arc, double arc, double arc. So that's how the angles work in a rectangle. Okay, let's move on. Rhombus, he gets the properties of a parallelogram. His bonus ones are 4 congruent sides. So a rhombus is like a square but leaning over. He gets diagonals that are perpendicular. So when you see a rhombus, the first thing you need to do is add 90, 90, 90, 90 to the diagonals. You see a rhombus, boom, add a box or 4 boxes. And then the diagonals bisect the angles in a rhombus. So congruent, 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 and then double arc, double arc, double arc, double arc. Okay? Lastly is a square, and of course, he gets all the properties of the shapes above him. We're going to skip the always, sometimes, never, because I want to do a few workout problems before you start your quiz. We have 3 minutes. Okay, we can do this. Ready? Parallelogram, warm. Find X and Y. You might have a system on your quiz today, so I wanted to show you a system before you take your quiz, okay? So, WR, MA, WU, and MU. Do you know what you're allowed to set equal to what? This is a parallelogram, so we're not going to set WR equal to MA. The diagonals are not congruent. WR is going to equal 2 times WU, right? Are we okay with that? Because the diagonals bisect each other. So I know that I can just double WU and I'll have WR. Is that confusing enough? So 19.5 times 2 is 39. So here's my first equation. X plus 6y equals 39. I'm going to do the same thing with the other one. Here's MA and here's MU. So I'm going to double MU. What do we get? 23. And that equals MA, 5x minus 6. The good news here, and what we try to do to you most of the time, is that this system is perfectly set up for elimination. You don't have to move anything around. We have a positive 6y and a negative 6y, so now we're allowed to add these together. So we have x plus 5x, we have 6x. These cancel, equals 61. $5 paying attention. All right, so we divide by 6, and we get a really ugly answer, 31/3. There we go. So how would we get y? We would just plug our x in to solve for y. That's why you use a calculator. It'll be prettier on your quiz. I got y is 43/9 when you plug in 31/3 to that. Okay. On this next one, we have BCA. I'm going to go ahead and distribute this, if that's okay. 3x plus 3. We have ACD, 4x plus 2. And we have CAD, 5x minus 7. So in this problem, we need to decide what we're allowed to set equal. We have 3 different equations. Be careful. This BADC is just a parallelogram. It is not a rhombus, it is not a rectangle, it's not a square. It is a plain old parallelogram. So I cannot set 3x plus 3 equal to 4x plus 2. I can set this angle equal to this angle, though, because of alternate interior angles. So 3x plus 3 equals 5x minus 7. And now we've done the toughest part. The rest is just algebra. So what do we have? 10 equals 2x. X is 5. Then it said to find the measure of angle C, which is quite easy. We would just plug that into both of those. So 3 times 5 is 15, so that would be 18 for this angle. And then this would be 22. So the measure of angle C would be a 40-degree angle. The next one says that it is a rhombus. It is a rhombus. We are given the measure of angle 1, and we're given the measure of angle 4. We would not set those equal. We would not add those to equal 180. We're actually going to ignore the measure of angle 1 for now, because we know that in a rhombus, the diagonals are perpendicular. So we're going to take angle 4, and we're going to set it equal to 90, because the diagonals are perpendicular. So that one was a little tricky, okay, because you had to know to set that equal to 90 because one of your properties says the diagonals are perpendicular. Okay, so to find the measure of angle 3, we would need to take that 8 and we would need to plug it in. 4.5 times 8 minus 7. 29 is the measure of angle 1. And then to find the measure of angle 3, we would just do 90 minus 29. 61. Okay, we're going to stop there for today.